Welcome to Cyber in 5. It's a LinkedIn series where we're asking 5 questions from senior executives in cybersecurity about trending topics and the overall business impact. So today we're going to start it with an interview with Sean Brady. He's the Senior Vice President of Mimecast. And to get us started, Sean, why don't you talk a little bit about your role and what your organization does?
Sure. Thanks, Stacy. It's great to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm, as you said, Senior Vice President of Product Management here at Mimecast. That means that I have responsibility for the product management over our entire portfolio. Mimecast as a company, we've been around for 20 years, which matches about my time in security. Started as an email-focused company, and now we've been looking a lot at human risk management and how we really deal with protecting organizations against the risk of their humans.
And I think that's one of the most interesting topics. I've been in security for quite a while, and I always talk about our biggest danger is really that careless user. It's the one that's just trying to get their job done on a day-to-day basis. As we're more digital, they're moving fast, not always thinking security is top of mind.
I think about this all the time. We the vast majority of people that we work with, like nobody, like they aren't malicious, but we all make mistakes. I mean, I will be the first person to admit I try to stay on Amazon, not to give them a free plug in this forum, but I've purchased a few things on my work laptop. I know I shouldn't, but thankfully I do it on safe sites. And I just think there's a lot of humans out there that maybe don't practice all those things, or they haven't been in security as long as you and I have and heard all the things that we've had over the years. So just watching out for the risks that they accidentally pose is one of the number one things that security professionals have to do. Then you also have to prepare for the actual bad actors who are running around out there.
And it's amazing, right? You and I were talking ahead of time. Education definitely is critical and it gets you so far. I laugh my son. I tell him, don't click on any links. And one day I saw him randomly taking a QR code. I'm like, don't do that either. He's like, but it's not a link. So it's this constant education that we have to do.
If my son is 19, and I think all the time, like he tells me about the places that he goes, and I see like he does it on his phone. So I think about then the like what habits is he learning? What habits are his peers learning? There's so much education, so much that we just need to, as society, think about, but then as organizations themselves also need to anticipate that this is going to be the future. Like this is going to be the reality that we're going to be dealing with for the next 40 plus, 50 plus, well into the future.
Absolutely. And so, talking about that, it's a great segue into maybe kind of question number 2 in terms of how can organizations think about human risk and really start to address some of the challenges we just hinted at?
I think we're spending, as you might imagine, tons of time here at Mimecast thinking about that. But the thing we keep coming back to is we think a lot about we've done some studies, and it tells us that 8% of users are actually the group of users within your organization that you need to worry about. So if you think about that from almost a sociology perspective, where if you know that it's really only 8%, those are the diehards that can't be trained. Because the reality, most of us, we mean to do well. If I were to say to you, Stacy, like, hey, Stacy, don't click on those links again that have that, chances are you'd never do it again. You'd register that information. But the reality is there are diehards, and then there are the people who just like willfully choose to not pay attention. How do you zoom in on understanding who those individuals are versus just having to have blanket rules that lock everybody out? We think that's one of the number one conundrums in security right now is given how complex things are going and how complex it's only going to get as those Gen Zers and millennials and everybody start onboarding with different practices. How do we start to understand who those individuals are?
And I think you were kind of going there. It's the balance, right? Because we want people to work the way that they're most efficient. I personally like the fact that we live in a digital world. And if I am running out or it's over the weekend, I still can go and get access to the things I need. I'm not stuck at home waiting for this urgent email that needs to come through. But at the same time, we do need to put that protective layer in place. So it's this constant balance of how do we make people as productive as possible, work the way they want to work, and have that freedom, but then at the same time have those controls in place so that you're not limiting those that know how to act and behave responsibly, but still protect from maybe, like you said, that 8%.
Absolutely. It's it's such a tricky challenge because, again, you and I have been doing this for such a long time now. Sometimes I say this to myself and I'm like, oh, it's so obvious. It might be obvious to those of us in the industry, and hopefully folks listening to this are kind of nodding along like, okay, there goes Sean again, stating the obvious. But the reality is that there's so many people out there who are either just learning this or are populations that need help in this. They want to do well, but how can we as organizations provide the necessary frameworks and guidance to let them stay in their lanes?
And to that, and talking about trends, I don't think we can get away with a topic without bringing in the two letters of AI. But I think AI used in the right way can truly help some of these challenges we just talked about, minimize that insider threat, but really enable people to work. How are you seeing AI kind of adjust to help organizations with some of these challenges?
We don't have nearly enough time for me to go to like fully geek out like I could in this space. Let me see if I can focus myself a little bit on what we're seeing. Uh, let's first talk about, if I can break this into a couple pieces, the potential of what AI, and we're thinking about this a lot in security. Every security vendor is out there thinking about what can AI do. I, I think we're definitely landing as a space on AI itself is not the solution. Let's not fall prey to that. AI is a tool which we can use to make all of our jobs easier and to make products better. There's just phenomenal opportunities we're looking at, even just in terms of, hey, think about all the security operations centers professionals. How do I sift through all of my data? AI is phenomenal at allowing you to sift through the data and quickly identify the points. Um, I want to talk about the risks of AI, but let me first, before I do that, see if there's anything that you wanted to see that you've seen about how have you seen any use cases of AI benefiting?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality, and I love how you position it, right? AI is a tool to improve productivity. And that's, here at Secureworks, we do a lot of investigations around potential threats. And we're able to use AI learning models from what we see on threat actors to really
Yeah.
identify this is a real threat, right? Versus this is one that maybe isn't as risky for someone to look at. And the speed of what we can do that using the processing of AI is incredibly faster, more accurate than ever a human. It doesn't mean you still don't need humans overlooking oversight, but you would rather spend time on the three things that are really potential threats versus the sea of 20,000 events trying to make your own best judgment on what might be real or not. And so I love that aspect of it's a tool to accelerate the speed, which is really important. I mean, we see threat actors now coming in less than 28 hours exploiting, sometimes under 7 hours in the latest research that we've done.
Absolutely. So that great segue to thinking about the actual threats of AI. Like we see, so at Mimecast we see 2 billion emails a day. And so the challenge that we're finding is like, okay, how do you sift through? Because it used to be a phishing email. We could all see the phishing email or the emails like the Nigerian prince classic use case. It's like, okay, easy to pick out. AI is going to make that harder. So that means that we have to step up our own game to be able to identify things which look a little clearer. But then the use case I'm thinking a lot about, as well as with our recent acquisition of Code 42 and things we're thinking about there, are the increasing threat we're seeing is, again, it gets back to that human risk problem of casual behavior actually introducing risk. It's there's all the open source tools available now for AI. Well, guess what? That's taking those requests that go to them and aggregating them in common models. If your engineer is thinking, oh, I can develop something quickly, I can copy and paste something into, not to pick on Chat GPT, they're just one of the big names in the cloud. I can paste it into Chat GPT and quickly get code back. What you actually did there was you took your own intellectual property and you posted it to AI. Like that is an unintended but threat to my organization. So how are we thinking about, again, how we put guardrails around all of that? That I think in some ways is actually the greater challenge. I won't call it threat, but that's the greater challenge of AI is solving for where it might make it too easy.
Well, it's information sharing, right? So as we talk about the way people change the way they interact, before it was, well, don't email private information. Now it's understanding that, whether it be Google or Dropbox or any of these sharing things that are outside your own enterprise, that could potentially be a risk. Now it's actually thinking about information that you're putting into a third party bot that many people still don't think about as being leaking information or sharing things they shouldn't share or realizing the impact that that could have. And so I think all this goes hand in hand on how do we continue to educate, but then create guardrails, because these are great tools for anyone that can use if used in the proper fashion and way.
Correct. We're absolutely adopting him. Our CEO, Mark Van Zadelhoff, huge proponent of AI. Like he's really incorporated it even into his own life, where he's just seen incredible efficiencies that he's generating for himself, and he's encouraging, as CEOs do, encouraging all of us to adopt it. And sometimes it's like, okay, Mark, like we hear you, but other hands we're like, okay, love the passion and seeing like unlocking this value that it can add to us. It's just making sure that we're practicing and taking the right steps to still protect corporate data and corporate information.
Exactly. And then that's kind of the flip side. I think you and I both live in this world too of as new technologies come out and we take advantage of that. It's interesting you say next week we have our own what we're calling internal AI immersion week, and our CEO Wendy
Okay.
Thomas is kicking it off, and we're talking about the right practices and how we can leverage AI in our day-to-day from all roles in the organization. But then the reality is our threat actors have that same technology.
Yes.
And unfortunately, as we use things to become productive, there are the risks that others are using it for malicious behavior. What are you seeing in that realm?
So we're definitely seeing that the threat actors are using AI to literally create content. I mean, it's one of the best content generators out there. Ask any high school senior what kind of content generator it is. So definitely seen more evidence of emails themselves being produced by AI. It will enable, I think areas I'm worried about are just as again, someone who's been in security for nearly 25 years, we've always known to geek out on malware for a second. We've always known that malware would follow code-based trends. Like there'd be a certain new variant of malware that a lot of people would pick up. Uh, AI will only unfortunately make that even faster because you can now just rapidly iterate on variants and rapidly share information. So I'm definitely concerned about the speed of iteration from a malware perspective and the threats that that pose. Um, so I think to your point, they will like threat actors will use AI in many of the same ways that we do it. It'll make their jobs easier. It'll make them work faster. I think our challenge as security organizations and security professionals is to have an awareness of that. If it's going to happen, that because the reality is it doesn't actually mean they can hack somebody better. It just means they can run faster. So how are we preparing? Which then also translates into the how are we educating our employees? How are we educating our customers? How are we educating the market?
I love that in terms of it's not actually doing the work, right? It's just accelerating the pace of innovation. And I think, we do a lot of our research around threat actors as you do. And it's interesting because I still think in general, people don't realize that these are sophisticated groups that have their own HR department. They have their own affiliate models when you're talking about ransomware. They're sharing information, they're operationalizing how they behave, how they share, how they move fast. And with access to this technology, it allows them to move even faster. But I think at the end of the day, it's a lot of the same things we just talked about. It's discipline, it's making sure that users know what to look out for, that they're aware, and then also just having the right controls in place that allows an organization to detect and respond to those things as fast as possible. So I don't think we're definitely not sharing a doomsday story. It's more the awareness for people to understand how it's being used and the impact it can have.
It really is. It's the awareness among security organizations and security professionals. It's awareness among employees of what it poses. And then it probably also is the awareness of, hey, I don't actually think I understand this. How can I get help? How can I get assistance from organizations that we think do understand this and can add value to my organization?
I love that focus on awareness. So, kind of last official question is trying to get in five, but great conversation is, when you think about everything we covered today in a very short period of time, how would you recommend that security leaders talk about this risk as it relates to users and they're collaborating, whether it is through email or other communication streams? What can they do to make sure that their teams and also the executives are aware of those risks and how to best address them in the organization?
I think it really is in excess of communication. I give credit to Janan Budge over at Forrester for this particular point, where stressing it's incredibly important with our humans that there's no shame in this. So we shouldn't be shaming each other. It is understanding the risks that we pose and the risks that that poses to our organization. We're not saying to our employees, don't do these things from your work laptop because we're necessarily protective about the laptop. We're saying because here's the things that can actually happen even unwittingly. So please save certain behaviors for over here. Like segment your life, understand what this risk actually poses. We all participate in this culture. We're all, especially for publicly traded companies, we're all connected to the economic value of our companies. So let's all be a part of this and just understand the basics.
I love that. And something that I often talk about is the goal is not to, like you said, shame anyone because they maybe click on the wrong thing or take the wrong behavior. These threat actors are very smart. Their whole goal is to use often our own emotions, right? Our emotions to help, our emotions that, we want to give back, that we want to work quickly, all these things they know, and they're trying to trick us. It's almost this game for the user. And so it is that constant communication, that is that constant awareness. We were just recently at a customer advisory board, and one of our customers, I really like this. They start off all of their education around how do you protect yourself personally, because everyone cares about that. And
Yeah,
then when you're thinking about personal protection, then you start bringing that into the workplace. And so they're trying to add as much value in their communications, not only for how someone operates when they are at work on their work laptop or work phone, but also how those same values, those same awareness can drive protection for your own personal information, which I think people find very valuable as well.
that's right. Absolutely. You wouldn't leave in the same way. I actually really love that notion. In the same way you wouldn't leave something that is valuable to you just sitting out on your front stoop is the same way as are the same precautions we should be practicing. We shouldn't leave valuable corporate information just posted to the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Sean, I really appreciate the time today. I think this is some great tips for organizations to really think about. Anything last comments or anything you want to share with the audience today?
No, this was a ton of fun. I think we cheated. We asked way more than 5 questions to each other, but I think this was a ton of fun. Thank you, Stacy.
Yes, thank you. And I thank everyone that joined us today. If you're interested in learning more, you can definitely check out mimecast.com, their website, around some of the things Sean spoke about. And one of the exciting things is Secureworks and Mimecast work together. So we integrate all of that data that Mimecast is collecting, all of the detections, and layer it in with other telemetry sources, really to help protect the modern attack surface. So check out secureworks.com and mimecast.com. Thanks for all who joined again, and thank you, Sean.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.